Analogy, and the analogy we just discussed. The knee has our small muscles. The hips have our big muscles. Okay? So if we center them such that they have the same exact joint angle, so I'll move the knee out a little bit. This is our situation where we have the fulcrum centered. All right? This is not what we want to do because, again, our hips have much bigger muscles than our quads, than our knee extensors, okay? You'll hear me say that a little bit. There's knee extensors are around here, hip extensors here. Knee extensors extend the knee, hip extensors extend the hips, right? So what we're going to do in order to create this balance, this shifting of the fulcrum, is we are going to constrain the knee position such that the knee angle is more mechanically advantaged. So we're going to cut it off at about an inch or two in front of the toe. And you'll see what this does is the hip angle is quite close and the knee angle is quite open. Does everyone see that? Okay. But again, we want this because we have big muscles, mechanical disadvantage, little muscles, mechanical advantage. Does that make sense? Okay. And what this is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to lift the most weight and incorporate the most muscle mass. If we have one piece that's a limiting factor, the other piece is not going to get as strong. If everything is balanced, we can get everything strong very quickly. I'm sorry, we can get everything strong equally. Now you'll notice that I put the model with this bolt lower than this bolt. And the reason for that is a matter of safety and training. This is what is called below parallel. This is probably one of the most important aspects of the squat. This is the approximation of the acetabulum, which is where your femur inserts into the pelvis. And this is the top of the patella, all right? The reason this is so important is because if you do not squat below parallel, below this point, you can end up with a muscle imbalance. The reason for that is that when you are above parallel, your hamstrings are slacked. Your hamstrings are a group of muscles, a group of 3 muscles, one of which has 2 muscle bellies. So I guess you technically call it 4 muscles, whatever you want to do for that. And it crosses from the pelvis over the hip extensor, or over the hip, and on to either the front or the front of the tibia or the side of the fibula. All right? So it's actually crossing the knee joint. And because it's crossing the knee joint, it is going to stabilize the knee. So if the hamstrings are slacked, they cannot get as strong. If they can't get as strong, but you're making the knee extensors very strong, you can end up with knee instability. However, if you can stretch them, if you can cause them to create tension and contract, they will become strong together and you will have a very stable knee. This style of squat produces very few knee injuries, and it makes a lot of knee injuries go away. That's why it's so good. But below parallel is very important. So I did say something earlier about effective range of motion, the longest effective range of motion. And that feeds back into our criteria, into our other 2 criteria anyway, other 3 criteria. And what that means is we can go longer range of motion than this, some people can. But what that is going to do is it is going to pull the pelvis out of alignment and slack the erectors, which are these muscles. And those stabilize the pelvis and keep it from moving. You do not want, in the middle of a squat, for your erectors to become pulled out of their position. They're not slacked, I misspoke, but you do not want them to become pulled out of position. That's what happens, because the hamstrings will pull on the pelvis, and if you go low enough, they'll actually pull harder than the erectors can pull, and pull the pelvis out of position, which can injure the erectors. All right? And like I said earlier, we want to include the most muscle mass. And if one of them is being pulled out of contraction, that's not good. So there's an optimal depth range. All right? A good rule of thumb is about an inch below parallel. You have to be below parallel. And in the absence of a coach, if you're videotaping or having your buddy watch, an inch or two below parallel is pretty good. So we can put the bar in the front squat position here, on the top of the deltoids. We can put it in the high bar back squat position at the bottom of the traps. Or we can put it in the low bar position, which will be just under the spine of the scapula. If you put your hand on your shoulder, you can all do this, you'll feel a bone right here, right? Everyone got that? That is the spine of your scapula, okay? It feeds in, and once you go further deep here, you can feel the entire spine of the scapula. We're going to put it just under that, all right? This is the end of the spine of the scapula. Do you feel that? Okay. So we're going to put it just under there because it's stable. These are the three stable positions. If you put them anywhere else, the bar will slip into one of the stable positions. All right? The reason we choose the low bar is because if I shift this into a high bar squat, notice the knee constraint. This is not going to work. This person is going to fall back because the center of mass is actually shifted behind the midfoot. The midfoot is the point about which we want to balance. All right? The only way to counteract this might explode, so bear with me. The only way to counteract this is to shove the knees forward. And that's why you see a more vertical back in the high bar back squat and the front squat. In the front squat, it's even more pronounced. All right? But again, remember the fulcrum. Very important. We want low mechanical advantage, high mechanical advantage. All right?